you, because understanding this is how you stop personalizing behavior that was never about love in the first place. When a narcissist experiences long no contact, what is injured is not love, attachment, or emotional bonding. It is the ego. This distinction matters because narcissistic psychology is not organized around mutual connection. It is organized around regulation of self-worth. Other people function as external regulators, mirrors that stabilize an otherwise fragile internal identity. When that mirror disappears, the narcissist does not feel sadness in the way a healthy person would. They feel destabilization, disorientation, and threat. What looks like missing you is actually the loss of a stabilizing function you once served. You validated their importance, you reacted to them, you centered them emotionally. No contact removes that supply abruptly and without negotiation. The nervous system of a narcissist interprets this not as a relationship ending, but as an attack on the self. This is why their reactions often seem disproportionate, delayed, or oddly performative. The internal experience is not grief, it is exposure. Healthy grief involves reflection, accountability, and integration of loss. Ego injury involves defense. The narcissist responds by devaluing you internally, rewriting history, or constructing narratives where they were superior, indifferent, or unaffected. This is not lying in the traditional sense. It is psychological self-preservation. Accepting that they lost someone who chose to leave permanently would require acknowledging limits, flaws, and dependence, things their psyche is built to avoid. Long no contact intensifies this injury because it removes the possibility of repair on their terms. There is no argument to win, no reaction to provoke, no emotional leverage to pull. Silence communicates something far more threatening than anger ever could, that they are no longer central. That is why narcissists often oscillate between contempt and fixation during prolonged no contact. One moment they dismiss you as irrelevant. The next, they obsess over whether you still think about them. Both reactions serve the same purpose, restoring a sense of dominance. Importantly, this ego injury does not automatically lead to insight or change. Pain alone does not produce growth when the personality structure is rigid. Instead, the narcissist searches for ways to numb, displace, or reverse the injury. New sources of validation may be pursued. Old connections may be tested. Indirect surveillance may increase. All of it is an attempt to escape the unbearable implication introduced by your absence, that their sense of self was dependent, and that dependence was exposed when you stopped participating. Silence is not experienced by a narcissist as neutrality or space. It is experienced as rejection. In healthy psychology, silence can mean reflection, regulation, or acceptance. In narcissistic psychology, silence is interpreted through a threat-based lens. When you stop responding, explaining, defending, or reacting, the narcissist does not assume you are healing. They assume they have been dismissed, demoted, or replaced in importance. This is because their sense of value is relational and hierarchical, not internal. Attention equals existence. Withdrawal of attention feels like erasure. No contact removes the feedback loop they rely on to locate themselves psychologically. Your reactions once confirmed that they mattered, that they could influence your emotional state, that they occupied mental space. Silence collapses that confirmation. It introduces uncertainty they cannot tolerate. They begin asking internally, not how are they doing, but what does this say about me? The absence of data becomes a narrative vacuum. and that vacuum is quickly filled with assumptions of rejection, humiliation, or loss of status. This is why silence provokes such intense internal reactions, even when no outward behavior is visible. The narcissist may appear calm, detached, or indifferent, but internally they are running comparisons, constructing scenarios, and scanning for evidence that restores their significance. They may convince themselves you are suffering, missing them, or secretly hoping for contact. These fantasies are not about you returning. They are about neutralizing the meaning of your silence. If your silence can be reframed as weakness, longing, or punishment rather than autonomy, the ego remains intact. Silence also removes their ability to control the narrative in real time. When you engage, they can steer conversations, provoke emotional responses, or rewrite events through gaslighting. When you disengage, the story freezes in an unresolved state they cannot edit. This unresolved ending is experienced as rejection because it implies that you had the authority to end the interaction without their permission. That implication alone is deeply destabilizing. Importantly, they do not experience this rejection as sadness. It registers as shame, envy, and rage layered beneath defensive indifference. Silence communicates that they no longer have access, leverage, or priority. To a narcissistic structure, that message is not interpreted as "this person chose peace," but as "I have been deemed unnecessary," which is why silence often provokes delayed reactions, indirect monitoring, or sudden attempts to reassert presence rather than genuine reflection or remorse. After long no contact, narcissists often swing between two psychological extremes, a sense of superiority and a sense of collapse. This oscillation happens because their self-image is not stable or internally regulated. It depends on external validation to stay intact. When you are no longer present to provide that validation, the psyche scrambles to compensate, moving back and forth between grandiosity and emptiness. In moments of superiority, the narcissist convinces themselves that they are above you, beyond you, unaffected. They may internally frame themselves as having won, as being more desirable, more powerful, or more evolved. This grandiose posture is not confidence, it is a shield. It temporarily blocks the pain introduced by your absence. By elevating themselves and diminishing you, they avoid confronting the possibility that they were emotionally dependent on someone who chose to walk away. But this state cannot hold for long. Without ongoing reinforcement, the inflated self-image collapses. This is when the internal experience shifts into emptiness, agitation, or despair. The narcissist may feel restless, bored, irritable, or emotionally numb without understanding why. These sensations are not consciously linked to missing you. They are the result of losing a regulating object. You once helped anchor their emotional equilibrium. Without that anchor, the internal structure destabilizes. The collapse phase is often quiet and hidden. Narcissists are highly motivated to conceal vulnerability, even from themselves. Instead of acknowledging distress, they may distract through work, substances, new relationships, or compulsive behaviors. Alternatively, they may replay old interactions, fantasize about future recognition, or mentally rehearse scenarios where they regain control. The goal is always the same: escape the discomfort of insignificance. What makes this oscillation particularly confusing for others is that it can happen without any outward communication. One day they feel superior and dismissive. The next, they feel threatened and obsessed. These internal swings explain why narcissists sometimes return unexpectedly after long silence, or why they suddenly act as though the connection never mattered. Both extremes serve the same psychological function: protecting the fragile core from confronting dependency and loss. This pattern does not resolve on its own. Without insight and sustained self-reflection, the narcissist remains trapped between inflation and collapse, using others as tools to stabilize their internal world. Long no contact removes one such tool. The resulting instability is not a sign of healing or love. It is the exposure of a system that cannot maintain equilibrium without external reinforcement. After long no contact, a narcissist's memory does not function as a neutral record of events. It becomes an adaptive defense system. Their mind begins to reorganize the past in a way that protects their self-image from threat. This is not a conscious decision to lie, but an unconscious restructuring of reality designed to reduce psychological pain. When you leave and stay gone, the original narrative that they were admired, central, and indispensable is challenged. To tolerate this challenge, the past itself must be altered. Details that once showed your loyalty are minimized or erased. Moments where they depended on you are reframed as moments where you were too much, needy, or replaceable. Conflicts are reinterpreted so that they were always right, always restrained, always justified. Your boundaries become disrespect. Your withdrawal becomes cruelty. Your silence becomes manipulation. This revision allows them to preserve an image of superiority while avoiding the shame of abandonment. What makes this process powerful is that it feels real to them. Emotional memory in narcissistic structures is state-dependent. When the ego is threatened, the mind selectively retrieves information that supports survival, not truth. They genuinely remember events differently, depending on whether they feel grandiose or diminished. This is why confronting them with facts rarely works. You are not arguing with deception. You are confronting a self-protective identity system. Long no contact accelerates this rewriting because there is no external correction. When you are present, your reactions, reminders, and boundaries limit how far the narrative can drift. When you are absent, the story can be edited without resistance. Over time, they may come to believe that the relationship was insignificant, that you were flawed from the beginning, or that they were the one who emotionally disengaged first. These beliefs reduce the sting of your absence and restore a sense of control. This is also why delayed hoovering can feel surreal. When they reappear months or years later, they may reference a version of the past that bears little resemblance to your lived experience. They are not trying to understand you. They are trying to reconcile their current emotional need with a memory that has already been reshaped to protect them. The rewritten past serves one purpose: to ensure that no matter how the relationship ended, their self-image remains intact and unchallenged. Delayed hoovering is common after long no contact because narcissistic attachment does not follow emotional timelines, it follows ego regulation cycles. When contact first ends, the narcissist may appear unaffected or may quickly replace you with new sources of attention. This creates the illusion that you are forgotten. In reality, you are being placed on a psychological shelf. As long as other sources of validation are working, there is no urgency to return. The narcissist's nervous system is temporarily regulated elsewhere. Time is what makes the hoover delayed. New supply loses novelty. New relationships fail to stabilize the deeper insecurity. External validation fluctuates, but the unresolved rupture created by your absence remains stored. Long no contact transforms you from a real person into a symbolic object. You represent proof of rejection, autonomy, and loss of control. When their current coping mechanisms weaken, the mind returns to unresolved symbols, not out of longing, but out of unfinished business. The Hoover is not accidental because it is usually triggered by an internal drop in self-worth, not by memory of love. Stress, aging, loss, humiliation, or perceived failure can activate it. At that moment, the narcissist is not thinking about who you are now. They are thinking about who you once were to them, a reliable source of regulation. Reaching out becomes an attempt to reassert relevance and reverse the meaning of your silence. This is why delayed Hoovers often feel strangely timed and emotionally disconnected. They may occur years later with casual messages, vague apologies, or sudden nostalgia. The goal is not repair, it is testing access. If you respond even neutrally, the narcissist receives confirmation that they still occupy psychological space. That confirmation temporarily soothes the original ego injury caused by no contact. Importantly, the delay allows them to approach without accountability. Time blurs context. They may act as if nothing significant happened or as if enough time has passed that consequences should no longer apply. This protects them from confronting the original rupture. A delayed Hoover is an attempt to bypass responsibility while reclaiming influence. Long no contact is what makes delayed Hoovering possible. The absence preserves you as an unresolved object rather than a fully processed loss. The narcissist does not move on internally in linear time. They cycle. When regulation fails elsewhere, they return psychologically to where control was once reliable. The delay is not distance, it is incubation. After long no contact, narcissists often avoid direct outreach and instead shift into indirect monitoring. This is not restraint or respect for boundaries. It is a strategy shaped by fear of rejection and the need to maintain psychological control without risking humiliation. Direct contact carries the possibility of being ignored, blocked, or dismissed. Outcomes that would confirm the very ego injury they are trying to avoid. Indirect observation feels safer because it allows them to gather information while preserving the illusion of power. They may check your social media repeatedly, even if they never engage. They may ask mutual acquaintances casual questions framed as indifference. They may monitor your achievements, your emotional tone, your visibility, and your absence. This behavior is not curiosity about your well-being, it is data collection. They are assessing whether you are suffering, thriving, or thinking about them. Each piece of information is used to regulate their internal state. Indirect stalking serves multiple psychological functions at once. It reassures them that you still exist in a form they can observe. It allows them to fantasize narratives without confrontation. It also keeps the door psychologically open while avoiding the vulnerability of direct rejection. If they see signs that you are struggling, they may feel superior. If they see signs that you are thriving, they may feel threatened or compelled to reinsert themselves. Either way, your life remains a reference point for their self-evaluation. This behavior also reflects their need for control without accountability. Direct contact would require acknowledging the rupture, the silence, and the reason you left. Indirect observation allows them to bypass responsibility entirely. They can remain passive while still feeling involved. They can imagine influence without earning it. This is especially common when the narcissist senses that their previous tactics would no longer work or that you have emotionally detached. What makes this particularly unsettling is that it can continue for long periods without you being aware of it. Because there is no overt interaction, it appears as though they have moved on. Internally, however, they are tracking changes, comparing timelines, and maintaining a psychological thread that has not been released. This is not attachment in a healthy sense. It is surveillance driven by insecurity. Indirect stalking also preserves the possibility of future re-entry. By staying informed, they believe they can time a Hoover more effectively or craft an approach that bypasses your defenses. The monitoring is not about connection. It is about maintaining relevance without risking exposure. Your absence removes access, but as long as they can observe from a distance, they can avoid fully confronting the finality of your disengagement. When you disappear from a narcissist's life for a long time, your absence does not register as a simple loss of relationship. It threatens the structure of their identity. Narcissistic identity is not built from internal continuity or self-reflection. It is assembled through roles they occupy in other people's lives: the admired one, the needed one, the powerful one. When you are no longer there to confirm that